He stuck his tongue out at the world, and the world fell in love with him. He was the rock star of science, a man whose name is synonymous with genius. But behind the iconic hair and the playful photograph lies a story of rebellion, struggle, and a mind that completely reshaped our understanding of the universe. This is the story of how a curious boy who was slow to speak became the legend we know as Albert Einstein. Our story begins not in a pristine laboratory, but in Ulm, Germany, in 1879. Little Albert was a quiet, dreamy child. So quiet, in fact, that his parents worried he might have a learning disability. He didn't start speaking until he was around 3 years old. But when he did speak, it was in full sentences. He wasn't a fan of the rigid, rote learning style of German schools. He found them stifling, crushing the very curiosity they were supposed to nurture. His teachers saw him as a lazy daydreamer. One even famously told him he would never amount to anything. Imagine telling that to the future Einstein. But young Albert had a secret world. At age 5, his father showed him a magnetic compass. The invisible force that made the needle point north, no matter which way you turned the compass, fascinated him. He knew there had to be something deeply mysterious hidden behind the workings of the world. This was the spark. He devoured books on science and mathematics, teaching himself advanced concepts far beyond his school curriculum. He was a rebel, not against authority for its own sake, but against a system that tried to cage his imagination. He famously dropped out of school at 15 and left Germany to avoid mandatory military service, a move that showed his independent spirit early on. After eventually finishing his education in Switzerland, another roadblock appeared. He graduated with a degree in physics and math, but couldn't find a teaching job. The very professors who should have recognized his brilliance saw him as an arrogant and difficult student. So the man who would redefine space and time found himself working a humble job as a patent clerk in Bern. It seemed like a dead end, a failure. But it was a blessing in disguise. The job was not demanding, leaving his mind free to wander, to explore those deep mysteries that had fascinated him since childhood. He called his desk at the patent office his worldly cloister where he hatched his most revolutionary ideas. And then came 1905. Historians call it Einstein's Annus Mirabilis, his miracle year. At just 26 years old, while working as a patent clerk, he published 4 groundbreaking papers that would forever change the course of physics. One paper proved the existence of atoms. Another explained the photoelectric effect, which laid the foundation for quantum theory and would eventually win him the Nobel Prize. And then there were the 2 papers on the special theory of relativity. This is where things get truly mind-bending. For centuries, everyone believed Isaac Newton had the final say on space and time. Space was a fixed stage, and time was a universal clock ticking at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. Einstein, in his thought experiments, imagined what it would be like to ride on a beam of light. He realized that the speed of light is constant, no matter how fast you are moving. This simple but profound idea had staggering consequences. It meant that space and time are not separate or absolute. They are interwoven into a single fabric, space-time. And this fabric can be stretched and squeezed. It meant that time itself can slow down the faster you move. It meant that matter and energy are 2 sides of the same coin. This led to the most famous equation in all of science, E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. A tiny amount of mass could be converted into a tremendous amount of energy. The power of the atom, the sun, and the stars was unlocked by this simple, elegant equation. Initially, the scientific community was skeptical. The ideas were too radical, too strange. But as experiments began to confirm his predictions, the world had to take notice. Over the next decade, Einstein worked to expand his theory. He wasn't satisfied. Special relativity only worked for constant motion. What about acceleration? What about gravity? This led to his magnum opus, the general theory of relativity, completed in 1915. Einstein proposed something even more audacious. Gravity isn't a force pulling objects together, as Newton suggested. Instead, gravity is the curvature of spacetime itself. Think of it like this. Place a heavy bowling ball on a trampoline. The fabric of the trampoline curves and sags. Now, if you roll a marble nearby, it won't travel in a straight line. It will follow the curve created by the bowling ball. That's gravity. Massive objects like planets and stars curve spacetime around them, and other objects simply follow those curves. It was an idea of breathtaking beauty and simplicity. One of its most stunning predictions was that gravity could bend light. In 1919, during a solar eclipse, the British astronomer Arthur Eddington led an expedition to test this very prediction. They photographed the stars near the sun, and just as Einstein predicted, the starlight was bent by the sun's massive gravity. The results were announced to the world. The headlines were explosive: Revolution in Science, New Theory of the Universe, Newtonian Ideas Overthrown. Overnight, Albert Einstein became a global superstar. He wasn't just a scientist anymore. He was a cultural icon. His wild hair, his gentle eyes, his charming German accent, he became the face of genius. He toured the world, greeted by huge crowds wherever he went. People who didn't understand a single word of his theories still flocked to see the man who had unlocked the secrets of the cosmos. He was a symbol of human intellect and boundless curiosity, but fame came with a heavy price. As a prominent Jewish intellectual in a rising tide of anti-Semitism in Germany, he became a target. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, Einstein was visiting the United States. He never returned to his homeland. His books were burned and his property was confiscated. He accepted a position at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, where he would spend the rest of his life. The later years of his life were marked by a deep sense of social responsibility and a relentless, but ultimately unsuccessful, scientific quest. Horrified by the rise of fascism and the potential for atomic weapons, a direct consequence of his E=mc², he signed a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning him of the possibility of a German atomic bomb and urging the US to begin its own research. This led to the Manhattan Project. Einstein later called signing this letter the one great mistake of his life. After witnessing the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, he became a passionate advocate for peace, nuclear disarmament, and a world government. He spent his final decades pleading with humanity to rise above nationalism and tribalism. Scientifically, he was also becoming isolated. The quantum theory he helped to create had evolved in ways he found deeply unsettling. It suggested a universe built on probability and randomness. Einstein could never accept this. God, he famously said, does not play dice with the universe. He spent the last 30 years of his life trying to find a unified field theory, a single theory that could explain all the forces of nature from gravity to electromagnetism in one elegant package. He was searching for the final ultimate mind of God. He never found it. Albert Einstein passed away in 1955 at the age of 76. He had requested a simple cremation and for his ashes to be scattered in a secret location to avoid creating a shrine. But his true legacy is not in any physical place, it's everywhere. It's in the GPS that guides your car, which has to account for the effects of relativity to work accurately. It's in the nuclear power that lights our cities. It's in the lasers, the solar panels, and our quest to understand black holes and the origins of the universe. But perhaps his greatest legacy is the inspiration he provides. He taught us that curiosity is a sacred gift. He showed us that imagination is more important than knowledge. He proved that a patent clerk, a dreamer who was told he'd amount to nothing, could see farther than anyone else and change our perception of reality itself. He was a rebel, a pacifist, a refugee, and a giant of science whose ideas continue to shape our world. He wasn't just a genius. He was a profoundly human figure who reminds us all to never stop questioning, never stop wondering, and to always look at the universe with the awe of a child seeing a compass for the very first time. That is why Albert Einstein is, and always will be, a legend. Thanks for watching. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories about the legends who shaped our world. See you next time.